We are living in a computer-programmed reality, and the only clue we have to it is when some variable is changed and some alteration in our reality occurs. We would have the overwhelming impression that we were reliving the present, déjà vu, perhaps in precisely the same way, hearing the same words, saying the same words. I submit that these impressions are valid and significant, and I will even say this: such an impression is a clue that at some past time point a variable was changed, reprogrammed as it were, and that because of this an alternative world branched off.
Good morning, and my apologies. Welcome to Navigating the Astrological Matrix. Yes, it's me, your host, Robert Phoenix, and I'm going to try to do something today here, which is a little bit different. I'm going to capture this show via video, which means you're going to see me. Maybe we'll put this up on the site, on YouTube, I don't know. So let's start right here. The only thing is I can't be too conscious of myself while I'm doing this, because it would be it would bother me. It would disturb me. It would distract me. Thank you. That's the word. So here's what I'm going to do. We're rolling right now. This is a simulcast. I'm going to close this and close this, and I'm going to look at it when it's all said and done. And we're going to see what happens here with the simulcast. Greeting guests 2596, 2600, and 2604. Thank you for joining the show. The chat room is a little sparse today, but the strength of the show isn't necessarily the live experience, except for me. I am the live experience. The strength of the show is the podcast. And a lot of people listen to this after the fact. Hello, guest 2608. Welcome to the proceedings. It's Monday, April 2nd. Did everybody have a good April Fool's Day out there on Sunday? I didn't get pranked, which is good. I'm glad. Although I'm not opposed to getting pranked. You know, being pranked keeps us quote unquote humble, and we get to laugh at ourselves. But I did have kind of an interesting April Fool's in that my kid started his Little League career yesterday. It was his first game, and it was fun. It was great. And no matter what you think about professional sports, there's something about Little League, even though it's if you break down baseball, clearly it is a Freemasonic game. I mean, there are the numerology, the angles, the terminology, and even the compass and the square is mapped out and plotted out in the diamond. And I don't want to get into the specifics of it because that's not what today's show is about. But it is a Freemasonic game. And I don't care because I love baseball. I've always loved baseball. And there's something about it that sets it apart from other sports. Look, I just picked my nose. See, I'm unaware of the fact that I'm now videotaping myself. I'm playing Big Brother to myself. And I'm unaware of the fact that I just gave myself away to my Big Brother self by picking my nose. So you'll see that maybe, or maybe you won't. I don't know. It depends on how I feel about how I look. And I'm vain. I am a little vain. I hate to say it. I actually showered and shaved for this show, I put on a nice sweater. I put on a clean red T-shirt, red and blue. I've got the red and the blue, so I'm covering both sides of the bases here, fair and balanced. 3 planets in Libra, conjunct Moon, Mercury, and Venus. I'm all about being fair and balanced. I may not be fair and balanced by the end of the show today, though, although I will always endeavor to be fair and balanced. And if I don't come across fair and balanced, well, I'm sorry. That's where you come into play, and you have to make your own decisions, draw your own conclusions. So anyway, baseball, there is something special about it, and it is a rite of passage to watch these kids, to watch them fail, to watch them strike out, you know, to watch them get a hit. It's all life. It's all life. I think professional baseball is kind of a travesty, to be honest with you. I was a huge professional baseball fan. I don't really follow it that much anymore because I have other things to follow. There are bigger things happening in the game of life than baseball. And I used to think that baseball and sports to a large extent, and I still do, provides us with an interesting mythical narrative in which we can track the human condition. But a lot of professional sports is fixed. I'm sorry. It's the way it goes. It's the way it is. I know this. You know, basketball, the NBA is one of the most fixed sports of all time, thanks David Stern. And the NFL is not far behind it. And professional baseball, I don't know. When you get a team like the Giants winning a couple of years ago, even though theoretically it could be a metaphor for like the Nephilim of the Anunnaki, and there's all this evidence that's amassing that this is, you know, where all this is going. The disclosure is the return of the Giants, which could be seen, by the way, in the film Prometheus by Ridley Scott. Now, see, I don't know where I am. Now, if I tilt this, now I'm looking down on you. I'm looking down on you. Even though you can't see it now, maybe you'll see it in the podcast or on YouTube. Now I'm looking down on you. This is the truth, you see. Anyway, Prometheus, Ridley Scott's new film, is about stealing fire from the gods. And I'm going to do a post on Prometheus soon. It really caught my eye about 2 weeks ago. And if you look at Ridley Scott's body of work, he's a company guy. You know, there are directors that are company men, and you can tell who they are by the frequency of their work. And probably at the top of the totem pole is Roland Emmerich, who gets all the great disaster films and all the great, you know, consciousness shaking, hidden in plain sight, predictive programming scripts that there can be. He gets them, so he's right at the top. And Ridley Scott's not far beneath the level of Roland Emmerich. And that's not to say that Ridley Scott is not a great film director. He truly is a great film director. He's a fantastic film director. But you can go through his film work and you can see, oh yeah, that's happening. That's happening. That's happening. Blade Runner is a big paean in some ways to synthetic sentience and the embrace of android consciousness, android lovers. You know, Philip K. Dick, you know, of course, Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, the author of Blade Runner, of course, Philip K. Dick, the guy who creates or at least narrates my opening segment on the show. I have a great deal of respect for Philip K. Dick. I think he was tapping into possible futures, and I certainly believe that the dystopian future of Blade Runner. In fact, I hate to say this, but I would love to see somebody do a remake of Blade Runner, and not get wallowed in CGI, because part of the charm of Blade Runner was the fact that they were doing all this stuff with real sets. And you know, I saw Blade Runner in 1981, and it was way cool in 1981. It looks a little dated now, but I'd love to see an updated version of Blade Runner. But it's really what it is it's massaging people to get ready to embrace the potential, not even the potential, the reality of androids and android consciousness and android lovers. And ultimately, would the android even replace the human species? I mean, this is what Blade Runner was about. There's a narrative around Blade Runner, which is Paradise Lost, because that's what Rutger Hauer's character is constantly quoting, is Paradise Lost from Blade Runner. I think I might have even had Blade Runner as part of my open at one point in time. I think I did, a long time ago. I had it as part of my open. So Prometheus is out. It's about stealing fire from the gods. And a couple of weeks ago, the latest trailer for it was out, and it was channeling really this Piscean energy. I mean, it was like, this ocean and waterfall, this really oceanic world that Prometheus, the starcraft, had traveled to. So there was an invocation of Neptune and Pisces at the beginning of the film, and then it talks about the time of gods, when gods live and gods die. And from what I can see about, or can garner from the trailer of Prometheus, is that there is a team of anthropologists or archaeologists, and they find a series of symbols that show up in all these different places all around the world. And we've been prepared to embrace this kind of reality over the last 10 years with the Ancient Alien series, and going all the way back to Eric von Däniken, which I got into when I was a kid. So I've been into this since I was 12 years old. I mean, this is where I chime in. My father and I were researchers in the Ancient Alien experience back in 1972. I used to, go through the Bible with my father to try to find stuff other than Ezekiel that would relate to the Ancient Alien narrative. We did that. It was a big deal for me. I got into like Sumerian culture and Mesopotamian culture and tried to find pieces that I could somehow relate to this cosmology of the Ancient Alien. And so here we have in the new film by Ridley Scott, this narrative again be emerging, and that they find these symbols cross-culturally in all these different locations. They put them together, and it's kind of like the experience in Stargate, where it's like, aha, here's the answer. And the answer is that we came from there. We came from this place, and these people really were the creator gods of our species. Let's go there. Let's go. Let's go on a field trip. Let's go on a roadie and go find out where we came from. And that's where it all starts. That's the premise of the movie. And then there's a whole other, again, subplot to this, which I believe it relates to Morgellons, and it relates to the synthetic sentience that a lot of us, unfortunately, are harboring and carrying around in our Earth suits via chemtrails. And you can see at the beginning, you can see it in the film clip, in the trailer, that there are extremely tiny, tiny, tiny bits of consciousness that grow into something else, and they grow into something else inside of people. That's pretty clear from the trailer, and for me, that really resonates with the whole Morgellons experience. So I'm going to be doing something on Prometheus in the next couple of days, and I'm gonna look at some other angles that are associated. I'm totally into the Neptune and Pisces, the Chiron and Pisces flow right now, because I think that there's a lot there. I think there's a lot of information, and the floodgates have been opened. I mean, from Coney 2012 to Trayvon Martin, what we're doing now is we're trying to untangle what's real and what's not real. We're in this place. It's a really interesting place. We haven't ever really been here before, and the reason why I say this is because it's taken the internet probably about 12 to 13 years to get revved up and ramped up as an engine for awakening. And what we're seeing now is we're seeing people jump into these events very quickly and just use laser beams to dissect and remove and cauterize the supposed events. It's what happened with Coney 2012. It's happening. I'm sorry, it's happening with Trayvon Martin. And I'm going to talk about Trayvon Martin. I'm going to talk about race in a few minutes. But this whole idea that the public can be misled now by the mainstream media is almost becoming a myth before our very eyes. Now, that's not to say that we won't buy into things as we move forward. And that's not to say that there won't be huge gaffes and mishaps and people shooting wide of the mark at times. But where we are right now is we are a species that is engaged in the act of revelation. And revelation does not necessarily mean the end time story, although certainly there are subplots to the end time story of Revelation that are taking place right now. Revelation is a very personal experience. We all are going through our own version of Revelation right now. It's all happening right now. So you're having your come to Jesus moment in your life. I'm seeing this. I'm seeing this across the board with many people. We are at a moment of reckoning internally. And if you're not there, I suggest you get there. And I'm not saying that because I want you to be afraid of God or be afraid of the end times or be afraid of the rapture, because I don't really go there with that. I think the greatest flaw in the model of Christianity is the rapture, and it is revelations to a large extent, because why would you theoretically waste your time on this planet, in this sphere of existence? Why would you come here? Why would you be born here only to go through all these temptations and to stay sober and pure and clean and devout and chaste, just so you could have a great afterlife? To me, that's insanity. It's total insanity. Now, that's not to say that you can't be accountable for what you do and what you think and what you say and how you treat other people here, but really, it's not about where you go after we take our final breath. It's how you live while you're here. I mean, that's really what it's about. Because if you're not accountable for how you live while you're here, then you may as well just unplug. See, that's to me, that is one of the things that would make Christianity so much more powerful. And it's like, yeah, ye shall know them by their works and all this stuff. I get that. But it's really about the here and now. In a weird way, Freemasonry gets that. And I'm not an advocate of Freemasonry, but they kind of get that, right? Because they're out there doing all these good works. I mean, you see Masons out in the community, and they're like doing all kinds of charitable stuff. And maybe that's all a cover, okay? But I also think that they are invested in something other than this notion that if you do the right thing, say the right thing, act the right way, treat people the right way, that you get a nice seat in heaven. I mean, they're invested in this world as well. So, for me, there's got to be this fusion of living in this world and being in the world, but not of it. That's where, to me, that's where it's at. And I'm not even sure how I got here, but there's my Sermon on the Mount for the day. Let's talk about. I can't really let it go. As much as I would like to let it go, I can't really let go of the Trayvon Martin experience, because there are things about it that we need to work through. Maybe I need to work through them, but we need to work through them. And the fact of the matter is that we're getting lots of information now after the fact, that there are things that went on that we can't prove, but there are people coming forward. I mean, we can't prove objectively, meaning there's no camera that caught it all, but there are people that are coming out and saying, hey, this is what happened. There was an eyewitness to Zimmerman. There was his neighbor that said, yeah, I saw the guy look pretty screwed up. And yes, I see people of all different races coming over to his house. And yes, guess what? George Zimmerman tutors 2 African-American kids. So what's really going on here? So you've got this starting to kind of trickle out and emerge. And oh, by the way, there are pictures of Trayvon Martin that, frankly, they are a little scary, and they are supporting a stereotype. Now, where are they coming from? Are they coming from the side that wants to demonize Trayvon Martin? Or are they just really part of Trayvon Martin? You know, there's a picture of him with gold teeth and a grill. You know, there's a picture of him with his pants hanging down to his waist and his shorts up by his navel, and you know he's doing this. I mean, what are we to make of that after the fact? You know, what we got early were very innocent pictures of Trayvon Martin. How could you not be, sucked into this really, look, I mean, pictures when he was like, what, 9, 10, 11 years old? And the pictures now are not that flattering, I got to tell you. And they cross every stereotype that we would think of a young black male. And it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate that now we're seeing this other picture. And now now we're drawn into another layer of judgment. And then we find out he had jewelry in his purse. Then he found out he had a screwdriver in his purse. And where did he get the money for his weed? And where did he get the money for his gold teeth? I mean, these are all questions people are asking now. I'm sorry to bring it up, but they're asking these questions now. And when Barack Obama says, if I had a son, he'd look a lot like Trayvon, is that the Trayvon that's doing this or the Trayvon that's got the gold teeth? And I don't want to make, again, it's a tragedy. The tragedy is that if indeed these were the trappings of the culture that he was participating in, the tragedy is that he didn't have the guidance to steer him away from that. That's the tragedy. I'm sorry. That's the tragedy. The tragedy is that his father and his mother could not take him and say, look, you can't do that. You can't wear your clothes that way. You can't represent your culture that way. This is not allowable. That's the tragedy. I'm sorry. I'm laying it out there. George Zimmerman, what is his tragedy? I need to spend more time around the Zimmerman character. Is his tragedy that he's a failed law enforcement officer? What is his tragedy? There's tragedy in the George Zimmerman camp too. Is this tragedy the fact that, that he wanted to protect his area? Was he overzealous? Was he simply doing something that maybe the police should have been doing? Is that the tragedy? I don't know where the tragedy exists on the Zimmerman side of things. I don't. Again, I need to spend more time with it. But the tragedy from the Trayvon Martin side, obviously, is the kid did not have, I don't think he had the guidance. I'm sorry. I'm making a judgment call on it. Castigate me, leave my show, drop my blog. It's happened before. It'll probably happen again in the future. But he did not have, I don't think he had the proper guidance. And so therefore, what do we have? We have a situation where wrong place, wrong time for both the guys. Which leads me to talk about the next subject, and this is a very touchy subject. I want to talk about race. And I'm deeply concerned about the whole notion of race in this country because I think it's being stirred up and I think people are being played against one another. And this is a tactic. This is a divide and conquer strategic tactic. We're sitting around sharpening our knives, and I'm talking about this, where there's a lot going on in the Middle East. Trust me. The United States just laid down another layer of sanctions against Iran. There's maneuvering happening in the Middle East with Iran and with Syria in a very big way. They're going after regime change hard against Syria. And Assad, by the way, said, "Hey, I'm gonna play the game. I'm gonna work with the UN on this." He kind of called their bluff in some ways. So Assad, here's what Assad is going to do. Assad is going to play the game and buy himself time. I saw Assad's interview with Barbara Walters. He's a sharp dude. He knows the game. He knows that he's being cornered. Why? Because if they want a quote unquote new world order, they've got to get these sovereign, and they are sovereign, I'm sorry, these sovereign states, even though they are being run by caliphates or they're being run by the scions of kings or people that had run the country before them. I mean, Assad took over for his dad. But I'm telling you, it's still a sovereign nation. Why? Because they don't owe any debt. Syria has zero debt. Zero debt. And guess what? They've got some resources. And guess what? They've got really powerful trading partners with China and Russia. Iran, same thing, zero debt. And they've got gas fields, and they've got oil fields. And if there is supposedly going to be this Fabian socialist, one world party, new world order, you got to take those countries out. They got to go. That's what happened with Libya. That's what happened with Egypt. Now, who's going to run Egypt? The Muslim Brotherhood. And, most people in this, world, in the rabbit hole world, know that the Muslim Brotherhood is MI5, MI6. It has been for a while. So the Muslim Brotherhood is just a front. It's a front for, some other agency to run a government. And they're going to run the government in Egypt, and likely in Libya. So they got to take these two countries out. And there's a lot going on the global chessboard. Meanwhile, they're playing checkers in Sanford, Florida. Checkers, red and black. The red and the black. So I want to talk about race a little bit because we got to get over the race thing. I'm sorry, we got to get over it. We have to get over race. It's important. Race it's a big issue. Now somebody just called in, and I always have to check to see what the area code is. Let's see, we have here, what is this? 716 area code. Where is that? Where is the 716 area code? It is, let's see. It's New York. Right up, they're gone. They came, and they're gone. I don't know what happened. Anyway, I want to talk about race because I think it's really, really important. We have to get over these slights. We have to, on a collective level. We have to, okay? Because we can't move forward unless we get over it. We have to get over it. Now, that's not to say that people aren't hurt or they're carrying around some cultural wound. Yes, we are. We all are. I'm sorry. Even I am, okay? I'm carrying around a cultural wound too. My wound is newer. My wound is fresher. Trust me, it is. And it's not any less significant than any other race or culture. If you look back the last 30 years, the white Anglo-Saxon male has been the punching bag of the media. You look at any commercial on TV, and the white Anglo-Saxon male is a doofus. He is a doofus. Just look at any Kraft macaroni commercial. The dad is bumbling. He's fucking up. And who comes in to save the day? His kid or his wife? You go to any TV show, who's the doofus on the TV show? It's the dad. So, we have had a big fat target on us for the last 30 years. And quite frankly, I'm tired. I'm tired of it. And I think there are a lot of people that are associated with, quote unquote, my demographic that are tired of it too. And we are not alone. There's a layer of disrespect for a number of different races and cultures. And sometimes it's really subtle. I remember watching B-Movie with, that was produced by Jerry Seinfeld, and there was a mosquito character that was played by Chris Rock, voiced by Chris Rock, one of the most racist depictions of, I think, black culture in recent memory. They portray, clearly the mosquito was black in the movie, and the voice of the mosquito was Chris Rock, and nobody said boo about that. Are you kidding me? It was like completely racist. But that got swept under the rug. We got to get over this stuff. We have to. We got to move forward. We got to put it behind us. We have to. It's essential. And can we have a national dialogue over it? Yeah, sure, we can. Maybe it's important, but we got to put a stop to it. Starts at home with your kids, obviously, but it's got to end. It has to end. Because what's happening is it's dividing us. And it's always there in the background, waiting to be played, waiting to be stirred, waiting for the flames to be fanned. That's what happens. You know, have we made mistakes along the way? You bet your ass we made mistakes. The biggest mistake that could have been made, I'm going to tell you right now, was to not end slavery after the American Revolution. That was a huge mistake. Huge. It was drastic. You know, Lafayette said to Washington, well, now that you won the war, are you going to end slavery? He said no. Who's going to do the work? When Lafayette was appalled, his fellow Mason, his Freemasonic brother, Frater, he was appalled, and he went back to France. And you know, France never had slavery, by the way. If you go through the streets of Paris or any other part of France, the relations between whites and blacks, most of the blacks, by the way, in France come from Africa. Are you kidding me? They're like, it's extremely mellow, totally integrated, because they don't have the social stigmata of slavery in their collective history. Now, they did have slaves in Guyana, and Lafayette convinced them to let them go, and they did. Big mistake on the part of the United States when we started the war. That's something we need to account for. Sorry, it's the way it is. Thomas Jefferson, for all of the great work that he did, and trust me, he was a great man. He was a great writer, great thinker, great philosopher, but, you know, he was a big-time plantation owner and manager, and he had hundreds of slaves that built Monticello. And not only did he have them, but he laid with them and slept with them and sired kids, and not just with Sally Hemings, by the way. She was the one that was his quote-unquote house slave. Mistake. For all of his inspired rhetoric, he should have done the right thing. But the problem was that these guys wanted to live a good life. And they said, well, hell, I'm going to do this. Everybody else is doing it. I'm going to do this too. Wrong. Wrong move. Wrong move with the Native Americans. Bad move. Really bad move. Andrew Jackson, Trail of Tears, bad move. You know, that's not to say every Native American tribe was the noble savages that we like to portray in the media. No, they weren't. They did nasty stuff to each other. They did. Sometimes in their own tribe. But it didn't give us the excuse to push them off their lands the way that we did. That's a big thing that this country has to come to account for and with. But the bottom line is I didn't do it. And my father didn't do it. And my father's father didn't do it. You see, I mean, we're at a point now where we're at some point history loses its steam, because what really matters is what's happening right now. That's the most important thing. And do we have to have an accounting and a reckoning? Sure we do. Absolutely. Absolutely. But, you know, history is a funny thing. You know, the hidden side of history, you know, people don't really understand, you know, how the whole slave trade came about. The slave trade came about because there were guys, I'm sorry, they were Marrano Jews that were kicked out of Spain during the Inquisition. They were kicked out of Spain. They settled in New York City or New York, and Peter Stuyvesant kicked them out. He said, hey, Spain didn't like you. We don't like it. Get out of here. And they went to Rhode Island. They went to Providence. And Providence, Rhode Island was the launching point of the slave trade. That's where all the ships pretty much left out of, was Providence, Rhode Island. And the slave traders, I'm you know, I hate to tell you, I hate to break the news, but the slave traders were Jewish. The records are out there. You can check it. I'm not making it up. I'm not being anti-Jewish. I'm just putting it out there for the record. They were Jewish. And what did George Washington do? George Washington made a deal with them. He made a deal with Aaron Lopez and his other traders who were trading off the coast of west coast of Africa and bringing slaves back. He made a deal with them. He said, guess what? Because at that time they could not practice their religious freedom in this country. They were not allowed to. Jews were not allowed to be Jews in America at that time with the colony. And nor could they really enter into, you know, major economic markets. But because of the Revolutionary War, right, their freedom to practice their faith, and their freedom to enter into trade was a done deal. Washington made a deal. He went to them. He got money from them for the Revolutionary Army. That's what he did. He made a deal. And when it was all said and done, they were bona fide. But the ironic part is that while they were granted their rights to trade and to practice their religion, which is a great thing about this country. You want to be a Satanist, you can be a Satanist here. It didn't extend far enough to the people that they were bringing in from West Africa. Why? Because it was going to cut into their profit base. Deals were made. That's why a lot of what happened. You go to the Civil War. A lot of people think that the Civil War was this ideological battle where the North just had enough. It's like this is barbarism. We have to free the slaves. That's not really the case. The North was losing ground to the South economically. The South was where it was at. The South had a lot of the ports. In fact, almost all the ports at that time were in the South. And they had longer growing seasons, much more temperate climates, and guess what? They had, extremely cheap labor. The South was outpacing and outstripping the North in a very big way. And the South was already thinking about succession. They did not want to share their wealth and their resources with the North. It was like, tough, you guys figure your stuff out. We're carrying you. We're putting you on our back. So Lincoln, who is lionized as being the great liberator, Lincoln started the war, in essence, so they could essentially keep the South from seceding, not because the South necessarily wanted to keep slavery, although they did, because it was part of their model, and by the way, and should not have been. Let me just be clear about that. Should never have gone there in the first place. Okay, never. But it was part of their model, so they wanted to continue that model. But it was a byproduct of the North wanting the resources, wanting the tax revenue, wanting all these things that were part of the South. And they wanted to go in there and lay waste, which is what Sherman did, and then go in and rebuild the South and tax the South. It's kind of an early version of what happened with Iraq. Lay waste to Baghdad, go in and rebuild it. The North was the original version of Halliburton. Disaster capitalism is what it's called. So let's not be misguided by things. But we have to get clear on this stuff. We got to get clear. We got to get present. We got to get over it. It's time to get over it. Sorry, it just is. It's like let's bury this thing. What would the world be like if we did not have the social grudges that we carry with us? What would the world be like if the Holocaust didn't exist? And I'm not saying it didn't exist. What I'm saying is, what if the Holocaust, or the pain, or the memory, or the social projection of the Holocaust didn't exist? What if a whole group of people could move on? So you know what? We're moving on. What if a whole group of people vis-a-vis slavery could move on and say, guess what, we're moving on? Or what if a whole group of people who were banished to reservations move on? They say, yep, it's happened, we're moving on. And what if a whole group of people, quote unquote, white middle class, who's just been hammered over the last 30 years, and oh, by the way, they deserve it. What if we could move on and get away from the immediate grudge? What if we could move on from that? What if we could all move on together and sit around and say, you know what? That's not important. What's important is what's happening right now. And what's happening right now, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, in case you haven't noticed, is that resources are being snatched up and have been snatched up right before our very eyes. And what's happening is that we're all sitting around pointing the finger at each other for lesser crimes. That's what's happening. And I don't have any answers to how we get there. I don't. But I'll tell you what's really going on is that we are being played in a very big way, in a huge way. So it's incumbent upon us, no matter, what we perceive to be our slights and our wrongs, to do our best to stand back, even from these slanted and often painful, or at least perceived painful, cultural and social moorings, and say enough is enough. I applaud anybody who can look at their culture with a clear eye and say, this is wrong. We do not need to be doing this. And I think that's where we all need to be right now. We all need to be accountable. We all need to be responsible. Because if we aren't accountable and responsible, somebody else is going to try to make us accountable and responsible in ways that aren't in our best interest. They'll be playing on our emotions. And that's what's happening. Look, there are people that I've had on this show that I really like. And yet I see what's happening on Facebook with some of them, and they're falling for this thing. Hook, line, and sinker, and they're angry on this Trayvon Martin thing. And yeah, they should be angry, but they're angry at the wrong people. They're angry at the wrong people. Now they're talking about retribution and all this crap. And this is not what we need. If you go into the kind of the multidimensional realm, right? You go into this whole concept that there are these entities that are hovering around us in the fourth and lower fourth dimension, and they're just, they've got their tentacles on us, and they're sucking, the fear and the anger and the angst and the paranoia. This is what they live off of. And by the way, they do. They are there. I've experienced them. What we're doing now is we're giving them, a smorgasbord of angst and hate and anxiety. It's all we're feeding these entities, and then they get to play marionette and a puppet master with the people who are the planet managers, the custodial race on this planet, who do their bidding for them and set these things in motion. We got to step back. Big picture. We're all in this together. Put it aside. Put it away. It's hard, I know. People have been aggrieved, but you got to put it away. There we go. I'm done. I've had my rant. I'm sure there's more if I wanted to tap into it. And I will on my blog, because I am going to write about this. And if I offended anybody, I apologize. I just think we got to get there now. We got to get there now. Disabuse yourself of any slights, any past wrongs. And you may want to forgive yourself for what you've done to other people too. That's always a big one. Yeah, always a big one. I want to talk a little about Dallas Goldbug, and then I'm going to transition out of here. I thought his work at the beginning, when he was really honed in on the Giffords similarities, I thought it was brilliant. And I just think he's taken a very wide left turn. I went to his website last night to try to see if he made any connections with players in the Trayvon Martin case. If you don't know about Dallas Goldbug, what he does is he takes images of people and he looks at other people, and he makes some really interesting connections that people are playing multiple roles in this kind of collective narrative that we call reality. And I find that to be fascinating, either from a doppelganger perspective or a clone perspective or an actor perspective. I find that really fascinating. I think a lot of it goes on in our society, much more than we understand or want to acknowledge. And so what he did is he got into the whole Gabrielle Giffords thing, and he looked at who the players were, and he found that people were playing multiple parts in this. And he clearly demonstrated that there was something going on there that I thought was really interesting. It's like, wow, did Gabrielle Giffords really die? Was she really shot? And it brings up a lot of questions around. And, you know, there's a great deal of evidence that suggests that she wasn't. The sheriff was shot and killed. But the whole Gabrielle Giffords thing, based on you, and I don't want to go into it because you've got to look at his forensics, and they're really quite good, to be honest with you. And what he does, he links it to the Greenberg family, which is based out of Arizona, as being kind of this major media family that pushes characters and affects our reality. He even gets into Rebecca Black, the Friday Girl, as being one of the Greenberg kids. I don't doubt it. You know, I think it could be, that part could be real. But I think he's gone in a direction that I can't really recommend. Like, he's calling Andrew Breitbart's John Fox, the coach of the Denver Broncos, and that's just patently ridiculous. Like, John Fox is going to have the time, take the time out to be Andrew Breitbart. I mean, I'm sorry, he kind of lost me when he made that. Like, I know for a fact that John Fox is Brian Billick, who's the coach, was the coach of the Baltimore Ravens. It's his brother-in-law. And John Fox has a long coaching history. I mean, John Fox coached people at San Diego State. People know John Fox. John Fox is my age. And John Fox talks with a rasp, and has for years, from yelling over the course of a lifetime on football fields. Andrew Breitbart was not John Fox. Sorry. Andrew Breitbart has a story. Andrew Breitbart has a history. Andrew Breitbart has he's got a resume. I mean, the guy grew up in Southern California. I mean, if you go on to, like, say, Alex Jones' Wikipedia page, you won't find shit about Alex Jones in high school or junior high or anything like that. You'll find a lot of information on Andrew Breitbart in his early years. He went to Tulane University. I mean, he's got records there. Okay? So Andrew Breitbart was not John Fox, not even close. And I don't know why he's doing this. You know, I mean, I looked at his background. Look, this guy, Dallas Goldbug, worked for Halliburton. Okay? Halliburton. And I pointed this out early on to people that I had shared the information with or disseminated. So you got to be, that's like, here's the information. It's really interesting. I think he makes some really incredible connections, but you got to watch out for this guy. You know, look at his background. It's too connected. And so what's happened is that he gave us a fair amount of really interesting people that look a lot alike, like Michael Greenberg playing David de Rothschild. You put the two together, they look amazingly similar. You scratch your head and go, wow, interesting. By the way, where's Jared Lee Loughner? Where is he? Where's that case? Where is that right now? Can't find it, can you? I mean, there's no talk of this. Is he even going to have a trial? No, he's going to plead guilty and whatever, right? We'll never see or hear of Jared Lee Loughner again. And this would this would validate in some ways Dallas Goldbug's point. But you had these people early on that looked really it's like, wow, this is quite something. But now he's discredited. Now you can't take him seriously. Now you can't take any. So this is how the game works. Everything that he's done before this, you really can't take seriously. Like, there is one of the members of the Greenberg family who plays, theoretically, she plays Sarah Palin, Tina Fey, and one of the Truther Girls. They all look alike. I don't know. The John Fox, Andrew Breitbart thing, And I just don't think it plays. Is John Fox going to, is he so busy that he would take time out from the NFL Combine and his team to go and talk to, thousands of conservatives in Washington, D.C.? No. I don't know. Now, what's interesting about Breitbart, though, I'll say this, is that his origins are interesting, because Andrew Breitbart was adopted. He was adopted. He's Irish, so we don't really know theoretically where he came from. He was adopted and raised in Los Angeles, in West LA. His father was a significant restaurateur in West LA, and he went to all the good schools, and he delivered pizza to Judge Reinhold's house. That's all in the public record. But we don't know where he came from. We don't know what his genealogy is. We don't know any of that stuff. So that's a mystery. And his death, clearly a mystery as well. All right, it is 10:55 here in California, where, by the way, the weather has changed a little bit. It's a little sunnier. We like that. Let's bring more sun into the equation. We've had a lot of rain, but please keep the chemtrails away. We're a little bit tired of those. In fact, just keep them away from the rest of the planet. Can we just order that up, please? Sunny skies, clear, cumulus clouds, hold the chemtrails. Thank you. Let's put the order in. Okay, I want to thank everybody who was in the chat room. I'm sorry I didn't get in there and spend time with you today, but I only had an hour to burn. Next week, I'm hoping to get, I believe, I'm going to have a guest on next week for this time slot, and we're going to go for 2 hours on Monday of next week. We're going to burn hard 2 hours Monday of next week, and hopefully, cross your fingers, we're going to get into the whole ancient alien theme, which I think is it's critical. It's important. No matter how politicized and in some ways media-driven it is and will be over the course of the next year, I do believe it's something that is really important. We need to pay attention to it, and we need to untangle it, because I think it's a big piece of our hidden history. So I'm going to have a special guest on, hopefully next Monday. I'll leave his name out for now. Cross your fingers and see where that goes. Okay, so you know the drill. Use your head to discern what's real, your heart to see open what's possible. This is Robert Phoenix. You've been listening to the Monday Mashup, and here's Enemy by Ari Oakland. I'll see you all on Friday at the doors of divination.
I walked in the room and all the voices hit my face, conversations raging, but I just can't relate. And then the man with the crooked grin tells me all the spin and what I'm missing in my life. And I said, am I alone here in a context so unclear? Cause I don't know what is what and why is why. And the truth is that the enemy is the real tragedy. And the truth is that the enemy is the real tragedy. Don't tell me ignorance is bliss, cause that's just selfishness, as we don't exist in a state of perpetual happiness. You worry about your clothes and your affairs, cash, but baby, don't you know in the end we'll all be dust and ash. Yeah, we'll all die and we'll all cry and we'll all live for a better day. And the truth is that the enemy is the real tragedy. And the truth is that the enemy is the real tragedy. Yeah, I'll raise my hands up to the sky was disconnected from everything I knew. Apathy grew into a jaded view of progress. And even under the light of the revealing sun, all the foresight in the world